Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 317 of CryptoBiography, and I'm just calling this one Yosemite. And so I was planning on writing more for this week and doing a fiction podcast. I did know that this trip was coming up. It was going to be next week, actually, but it turned out to be this week. And because of that, I just didn't have enough time to write anything else. So what happened was we have been planning for some time, my wife and I, to go down to Yosemite. And so we did it. It's pretty basic. We got a hotel, we made the trip, and that's all there was to it. It was pretty straightforward. On the way, we did go and see Crater Lake as well in sort of middle Oregon, sort of south middle Oregon. And Crater Lake is pretty amazing. Like, it's the deepest lake in the United States. It's almost 2,000 feet deep. And it's basically just a cinder cone mountain that a long time ago had its top blown out. And the crater is all around the outside of the lake. And the inside goes way down deep. And so it just filled up with water. And it doesn't really have any sort of regular ins and outs like other lakes. The water doesn't go out of it. And there's not really a river that runs into it. It just, it fills up over time with water like a really big basin, basically. It's still fresh water. There's not enough salt to make it, like salt water, but it's really beautiful. Which I guess, partly it's probably a bunch of things. Like, first of all, because it doesn't have any like water running into it, the water's not being churned up all the time, so it's very like still water, and so there's not a lot of sediment and stuff in it. And because it's so deep, the blues really get highlighted, like it's a really blue lake. Anyway, really beautiful. We only spent a little bit of time there, and then we kept driving. So we got down there on the second day, and we got there relatively early, like a little afternoon. So we decided to go ahead and do some Yosemite time on the first day. And it turned out that several parts of Yosemite, unfortunately, were closed. But it was still totally worth it. Like, we got to see there were all these like very narrow roads, very twisty roads. It was really fun to drive on, actually. And saw some lovely long waterfalls. The famous one that, some types of the year looks like it's on fire. You see those famous photos of that. Well, when we were looking at it, it was actually like all rainbowy, like it, because of the time of day and whatever. It actually looked like it was like, it was all misty, but it was misting out a rainbow. It was really beautiful. And so, yeah, then after that, we decided to go up, and we went up to Shaughnessy Dam. And it's this dam way in the middle of nowhere. Like, we actually barely got there in time because, like, everything kind of gets closed down. Some of the side roads get closed down at night, and we barely got back out at 9, which is apparently when they close. But you go way out on this little road, and it's like, I grew up in Idaho, so I've been on a bunch of really bad roads before. But this one was like the worst paved road I've ever been on. It was actually paved. All paved all the way out to the dam. But it was crazy, like how wild it was. Like, it's really narrow, really twisty, very lumpy, bumpy. Like, you're always going up and down and all around. And, there's whole parts of it that were along cliffs, and it was very narrow. No guardrails or anything. Very intimidating to drive on, actually, but a lot of fun, actually. And we went out there, got to the dam. It's actually this dam is designed. It was designed originally to provide water to the San Francisco area, and it still provides water to like 2.5 million people still to this day. And it also now, it also in the 60s was added on to, so it also creates electricity. And yeah, it was really amazing, but really, really beautiful. And then we drove out, and it got really dark. We had to find gas because we were getting low on gas, and I had to pay like almost $6 a gallon for gas because the only gas we could find was way out in the middle of nowhere. And they knew that the people who were getting gas there had to get their gas. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. Second day, we just did more driving. A lot of things we wanted to see were closed, so we just kind of drove around and checked out the park, and it was really beautiful. Completely worth it. Highly recommended. Didn't leave me much time for writing, though, and in fact, on the next day after, so we had that half day that we went to the dam, and then we got back really late. The next day, we drove all around. And then we were done sort of mid-afternoon. We got back, but we were tired. We weren't going to take off that day. Plus, we had the hotel for another day anyway. But anyway, first thing, we leave in the morning, and then we didn't force ourselves to. We knew we could, in fact, hold off and just take 2 days to get back the way we took 2 days to get down there. But we really wanted to, be back home, sleep in our own bed, and all that. So we really tried, and we actually did make it. We took off. It was basically like 12 hours on the road with like 11 actually driving and about a total of an hour breaks, just little breaks here and there to get gas, stretch our legs, get some food, whatever. Found this lovely little sandwich shop in the middle of nowhere that had like some good Yelp ratings, and so we had a sandwich there. It was really good, and it was a lot of fun. So anyway, yeah, because of this, I did not do any writing this week. I'm still working on, what my next story is going to be, and we will work on that. The only other thing I wanted to say is the reason it got bumped up is it was going to be like 1 week later. No big deal, right? I mean, it shouldn't be, but my wife was like watching the weather and watching the fire reports and stuff like that, and she was just really concerned that we were trying to get to Montreal like a couple of years ago, and we just never got to make it because for COVID, but then also because there was a bunch of smoke, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, and she just didn't want our trip there to get canceled because of more smoke and stuff. And so what happened was just a few days before we left, 2 days before she left, she found one small fire sort of in that area, and she's like, the fires are starting, let's go see it now before it gets too smoky and it gets all bad and everything. And I was like, well, that still doesn't feel very likely, it's probably going to be okay, but you know what, I kind of, it's one of those married things, you just know, you just, if your partner cares this much about something, you just do it. So I there was going to be my OtiniCast podcast was going to be last week. We had to push it out a week. So I got with my co-host, let him know, hey, we need to put this off a week so I can move up our trip. And he was totally okay with that. I didn't expect him not to be, but it was kind of literally just a couple of days before that was, before we were going to do the podcast. But yeah, so we went, and it was a little warm, but it was beautiful weather, and air quality was fine. On the way back, we did see one fire, but it wasn't it looked like what had happened was the traffic was actually bound up. This was right on the border between California and Oregon, and some sort of truck was completely burnt out right on the side of the highway. So badly, it's hard to tell even what kind of truck exactly it was. Some sort of small semi-truck of some kind. But yeah, not only had it completely caught fire, and it was burned down to this frame. It was being burned down to a frame, and then it had started a fire actually up the hill that it was right next to. I haven't really caught wind of exactly what had happened with that. I haven't seen it on the news or anything. So, but in any case, there was this little fire that it had started, and it was actually being they were trying to put it out with these 2 helicopters that were bringing water and stuff like that. Anyway, So we get back, but the whole time there, the Yosemite was beautiful, a little warm, but it was absolutely beautiful. We get back, and then like the day after we get back, there's like a fire like just west of Yosemite, and the air quality is like in the 200s. And it is right now too. I just checked it, and it's gotten a tiny bit better, but it's like still really, really bad, like unhealthy air quality. Because like 50 is like not great, but kind of you can deal with it. And if it's over like 75, then it gets really bad. And if you have like any sort of lung issues, then it's really, really bad for you if it's over that. And it was like I said, it was 200. And so of course she was right. Turns out she was right. So it absolutely was good that we moved it up, because we probably would have gotten down there later this week, because I'm going to have to check it in a couple of days when we get down, when we gets to be like the 1 week later than when we went, because that's when we would have gone originally. And it certainly looks like she was right. It was so funny though, because like, even she kind of realized it was kind of like not, it was not likely, and she was kind of being over sort of protective of the trip. And she, but turns out she was right. And it doesn't take much, it just takes one fire, and it's in the wrong spot, just west of the park. And yeah, air quality goes right down the tubes. Anyway, so that was a lot of fun. I highly recommend it. Crater Lake also amazing. Like, I don't know. We didn't actually go down to it. We just got to a couple of the overlooks. You can kind of go down to it, but it's a little hard to get down to, because as I say, it's like this steep volcano and it's just like this steep crater inside the volcano, so it gets really there's not a lot of great places to just kind of pull up and check it out. So you have to do some climbing, you have to do some hiking in some places that can work. They do have some, at least they used to have some, like boat tours essentially, but there's not really a lot of great ways to get down to the water very easily. But so we just did some overlooking kind of stuff. It was beautiful though. Anyway, so highly recommended. And of course, check the air quality before you go. Apparently, we found out when we were there, the air quality of Yosemite, for whatever reason, is actually like worse than average anyway. I'm not sure why that would be. It's far enough away from the cities that you wouldn't think that would be anything to do with it, but maybe it's just sort of prone to, having the bad air sort of funneled through it, essentially, I guess. That must be something along those lines. Anyway, really enjoyed it. I will get back to regular writing for this next week, and thank you for listening.